A struggling waitress secretly paid an elderly woman's rent for 6 months, never knowing she owned half the city and was searching for someone worthy of inheriting her empire. Maya. Chen balanced 3 plates on her left arm while refilling coffee cups with her right hand, moving through Rosie's diner with the practiced efficiency of someone who had learned to make every movement count. At 29, she had been working double shifts at the small-town diner for 3 years. Her tips carefully counted each night and divided into labeled envelopes: rent, groceries, mom's physical therapy, and the smallest one, emergency. The diner sat on the edge of Millbrook, a town caught between rural farmland and the expanding suburbs of a larger city. Maya had moved here after her mother's stroke, leaving behind her graphic design career in Chicago to care for the woman who had raised her alone. The transition from creative professional to small-town waitress hadn't been easy, but Maya had learned that dignity could be found in any honest work. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you. Make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. Every Tuesday at exactly 2:30 p.m., Eleanor Whitmore would settle into booth 7 by the window, ordering the same thing: black coffee, wheat toast, and a small bowl of soup. She was somewhere in her 70s, with silver hair always pulled into a neat bun and clothes that were clean but clearly from another decade. Her handbag was worn leather, carefully maintained, and she always paid with exact change counted out slowly from a small coin purse. Maya had noticed Eleanor from her first week at the diner. There was something about the way the elderly woman sat perfectly straight, hands folded, watching the world outside with sharp, intelligent eyes that seemed to take in everything. She was polite but kept to herself, never lingering after her meal, never asking for anything extra. What Maya hadn't expected was to overhear the conversation that would change everything. It was a rainy Tuesday in October when Eleanor's usual routine was interrupted. Maya was wiping down the counter when she heard Eleanor's voice, strained and quiet, speaking into an old flip phone. "Mr. Patterson, I understand the situation, but surely we can work something out." "Yes, I know I'm 3 months behind. I have some jewelry I could sell. Please, just 1 more week. Maya froze, cloth still in her hand. Eleanor Whitmore, who always paid her diner bill with exact change, who carried herself with such quiet dignity, was being threatened with eviction. After Eleanor hung up, Maya watched her sit in booth 7 for nearly an hour, staring out the window with her untouched coffee growing cold. When she finally stood to leave, Maya noticed her hands were shaking as she gathered her things. That evening, Maya did something she had never done before. She looked up Eleanor Whitmore's address in the old phone book kept behind the register. Maple Street, just 6 blocks from the diner. She drove by slowly and saw a small, well-maintained house with a tiny garden and lace curtains in the windows. A red eviction notice was taped to the front door. Maya sat in her car for 20 minutes, calculating. Her mother's physical therapy was $200 a week. Her own rent was $650. She had exactly $347 in her emergency envelope money she had been saving for months in case her car broke down or her mother needed emergency medical care. The next morning, Maya walked into the property management office on Main Street before her shift started. "I'd like to make a payment on behalf of Eleanor Whitmore," she told the receptionist, her heart pounding. "For the house on Maple Street." The woman behind the desk looked confused. "Are you family?" "I'm a friend. She's been helping my grandmother, and I want to return the favor." The lie came easily, born from Maya's determination to preserve Eleanor's dignity. Maya paid Eleanor's rent that day. $485, more than half her emergency fund, gone in one transaction. But it didn't stop there. Week after week, Maya found ways to help. She would arrive at the property management office on different days, sometimes sending anonymous money orders, sometimes paying in person with different explanations. Ms. Whitmore helped my family during a difficult time. She volunteers at my church. She tutored my daughter. Maya picked up extra shifts, worked holidays, took on catering orders for the diner's special events. Every spare dollar went toward covering Eleanor's rent while maintaining the illusion that the payments were coming from various grateful community members. Meanwhile, Eleanor continued her Tuesday routine at the diner, never knowing that the young waitress who served her coffee and always remembered to warm her soup had become her anonymous guardian angel. Maya noticed Eleanor seemed less worried, that her hands no longer shook when she counted out change, that she had even begun ordering dessert occasionally, a small piece of apple pie that she would eat slowly, savoring each bite. For 6 months, Maya carried this secret. Her own emergency fund remained empty. She wore the same 3 work uniforms in rotation, the fabric wearing thin at the elbows. When her car broke down, she walked the 2 miles to work in snow and rain rather than take money from Eleanor's rent fund. When her mother needed an expensive medication adjustment, Maya worked a 3rd job on weekends, cleaning offices in the nearby city, but Maya never regretted the choice. Every Tuesday, watching Eleanor sit peacefully in booth 7, she felt something she hadn't experienced in years, the quiet satisfaction of knowing that her struggle had meaning beyond herself. What Maya didn't know, what she couldn't have imagined, was that Eleanor Whitmore wasn't just any elderly woman facing eviction. She was one of the most powerful property owners in 3 counties, a woman who had spent decades quietly building an empire that included shopping centers, apartment complexes, and commercial buildings throughout the region. And Eleanor had been watching Maya very carefully, recognizing something rare and precious, a young woman who gave without expecting recognition, who sacrificed without seeking reward, who possessed the kind of character that Eleanor had been searching for her entire life. The test had begun 6 months ago. Soon, it would be time for the revelation that would change both their lives forever. The transformation happened on a Wednesday morning in April, exactly 6 months after Maya had made her first anonymous rent payment. Instead of Eleanor's usual modest dress and worn cardigan, she walked into Rosie's diner wearing a tailored navy blazer, elegant pearl earrings, and shoes that whispered money with every step. Her silver hair was styled professionally, and she carried herself with an unmistakable air of authority. Maya nearly dropped the coffee pot she was holding. Eleanor approached the counter directly, bypassing her usual booth 7. Her sharp blue eyes met Maya's with a warmth that held something else: recognition, perhaps even gratitude. "Maya Chen," Eleanor said softly, as if they were old friends rather than customer and waitress. "Would you join me for lunch today? Somewhere. We can talk privately." Maya blinked, startled by the use of her full name. I'm working until 3. I've already spoken with Rosie. She's giving you the afternoon off." Eleanor's voice was gentle but carried the quiet confidence of someone accustomed to making things happen. An hour later, Maya found herself sitting across from Eleanor in the private dining room of the Millbrook Country Club, a place she had only seen from the outside during her walks through the wealthy part of town. Crystal glasses caught the afternoon light, and the silence felt heavy with unspoken truths. Eleanor folded her hands on the white tablecloth and looked directly into Maya's eyes. "I know what you've been doing, dear. Every payment, every story. You told the property management office every sacrifice you made. I know about the extra shifts, the weekend cleaning jobs, the nights you walked to work because you couldn't afford gas." Maya's face went pale. "I don't understand. My name is Eleanor Whitmore," she continued, "and I own Whitmore Properties. We manage over 60% of the commercial and residential real estate in this county, including shopping centers, apartment complexes, and office buildings from here to the state capitol." The words hit Maya like a physical blow. She gripped the edge of the table, her mind reeling. That's impossible. You're A sweet old lady who can barely afford coffee and toast? Eleanor's eyes twinkled with something between amusement and sadness. That's exactly what I wanted people to see. For 3 years, I've been testing people in this town, appearing as someone vulnerable, someone in need. Do you know how many people offered to help when they thought I was just a poor elderly woman? Maya stared at her, unable to speak. None, Eleanor said quietly. Not one person in 3 years offered genuine assistance without expecting something in return. Except you. But why? Maya's voice was barely a whisper. Why the test? Why me? Eleanor's expression grew serious, weighted with years of carefully considered decisions. I'm 76 years old, Maya. I built my empire from nothing after my husband died 30 years ago. I have no children, no family, and no one I trust to continue what I've built. I've been searching for someone with the character to inherit. Not just wealth, but responsibility. Maya stood abruptly, her chair scraping against the floor. This is insane. You're talking about inheriting. I'm a waitress. I dropped out of college. I don't know anything about real estate or business. You know the most important thing, Eleanor replied calmly. You know how to see people who are struggling and choose to help, even when it costs you everything. You know how to sacrifice without seeking recognition. You know how to preserve someone's dignity while offering assistance. But I lied to you. I lied to the property office. You protected my dignity while solving my problem. That wasn't deception, Maya. That was leadership. Eleanor stood and walked to the window, overlooking the town. I'm offering you something unprecedented. Come work with me. Learn the business. If you prove yourself over the next 2 years, I will transfer controlling ownership of Whitmore Properties to you. The entire portfolio worth approximately $40 million. Maya sank back into her chair, her hands shaking. 40 million ... The apartment complex where you live? I own it. The shopping center where you buy groceries? Mine. The medical building where your mother receives physical therapy? That's mine too. Eleanor turned back to face her. I've been quietly helping your mother's treatments for months, making sure her insurance covered more than it should have. Tears began to stream down Maya's face. I can't accept this. It's too much. I haven't earned. You've been earning it for 6 months, Eleanor interrupted gently. Every dollar you gave when you had nothing to spare. Every lie you told to protect my pride. Every night you walked home in the snow because you chose my rent over your gas money. Maya buried her face in her hands. I need time to think. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. Of course you do. But Maya ... Eleanor's voice carried the weight of decades of hard-won wisdom. I'm not offering you charity. I'm offering you the chance to become something you never imagined possible. The question is, do you have the courage to accept a gift you didn't ask for, but absolutely deserve? Maya looked up, her eyes red but defiant. And if I say no? Eleanor smiled, the first truly warm expression Maya had seen from her. Then you go back to Rosie's diner, and I go back to being a lonely old woman eating soup in booth 7. Nothing changes, no obligations, no pressure. The 6 months of rent you paid? Consider that my gift to you. Maya stood on shaking legs, her mind spinning with impossible possibilities and terrifying choices. I need to go home. I need to think. As she reached the door, Eleanor called after her. Maya, take all the time you need. But remember, sometimes the most extraordinary opportunities come disguised as the most impossible ones. Maya walked out into the bright April afternoon, her world completely transformed by a conversation that had lasted less than an hour. Behind her, Eleanor Whitmore sat alone in the elegant dining room, hoping that the young woman she had chosen would find the courage to choose herself in return. The test was complete. Now came the hardest part, waiting for Maya to decide who she was brave enough to become. Maya spent 3 sleepless nights pacing her small apartment, Eleanor's offer echoing in her mind like an impossible dream. $40 million. A real estate empire. A chance to transform her life in ways she had never dared imagine. But every time she considered accepting, doubt crept in. What did she know about business? How could she possibly be worthy of such trust? She tried to return to her normal routine at Rosie's diner, but everything felt different now. Booth 7 sat empty on Tuesday. Eleanor hadn't returned since their conversation. Maya found herself glancing at the window, wondering if she would ever see the elderly woman again, wondering if she had already blown the most extraordinary opportunity of her life. On Friday morning, everything changed. Maya's phone rang at 5:47 a.m., jolting her from restless sleep. Her mother's voice was strained, frightened in a way Maya hadn't heard since the night of the stroke 3 years ago. "Maya, honey, I'm at the hospital. I fell during my morning exercises and something's wrong with my leg. They're saying I need surgery, but ... double quotes." Her voice broke. "The insurance is saying it's not covered because it's related to my previous stroke. They want $30,000 up front." Maya felt the world tilt beneath her feet. $30,000. She had $247 in her checking account and no credit cards that weren't already maxed out from previous medical expenses. The next few hours blurred together in a nightmare of phone calls, insurance appeals, and desperate calculations. May sat in the hospital waiting room, staring at forms she couldn't afford to sign, watching her mother try to hide her pain behind a brave smile. "We'll figure something out, sweetheart," her mother whispered, though they both knew there was nothing left to figure out. They had already sold everything of value. Maya had already worked every hour her body could handle. Dr. Martinez, the orthopedic surgeon, approached with the gentle expression Maya had learned to dread. "Ms. Chen, we need to discuss your mother's options. Without the surgery, she'll likely lose significant mobility permanently. We can delay for a few days while you explore financing options, but..." Maya nodded numbly, knowing there were no financing options for someone like her. No bank would approve a loan. No family member could help. She was completely, utterly alone with an impossible choice. That evening, Maya sat beside her mother's hospital bed, holding her hand as she slept. The medication made her mother look fragile, older than her 62 years. Maya remembered when this woman had worked 3 jobs to put her through school, had never missed a single graduation or birthday despite their struggles. Maya pulled out her phone with trembling hands and dialed the number Eleanor had given her. "Eleanor Whitmore," came the crisp, professional voice. "It's Maya," she said quietly. I need to accept your offer." There was a pause. "Are you certain? This is a decision that will change everything. My mother needs surgery. $30,000. I don't have any other choice." "Maya," Eleanor's voice softened. "If this is only about money for your mother's surgery, I can simply..." "No." Maya's voice was firmer than she felt. "If I'm going to accept help, I want to earn it. I want to work for it. I want to deserve it." Eleanor was quiet for a long moment. "I'll have the surgery costs handled within the hour. Consider it an advance on your future earnings. Can you meet me Monday morning at my office? We have a great deal of work to do." By Monday morning, Maya's mother was in recovery from a successful surgery. Her medical bills mysteriously resolved through what the hospital called a private medical scholarship fund. Maya stood outside the gleaming glass building that housed Whitmore Properties, wearing the only business outfit she owned, black skirt and white blouse she had bought for job interviews years ago. Eleanor met her in the marble lobby, looking every inch the successful businesswoman in a charcoal suit and confident stride. Ready to learn how to run an empire? The first week was overwhelming. Eleanor introduced her to property managers, accountants, contractors, and tenants. Maya learned about occupancy rates, maintenance schedules, zoning laws, and profit margins. Her head spun with numbers and regulations, but she took notes furiously. Stayed late every night and asked questions about everything. "You don't have to learn it all at once," Eleanor said one evening as they reviewed lease agreements in her office. "Building knowledge is like building property, one solid foundation at a time." Maya looked up from the contract she was studying. "Why are you being so patient with me? You could have chosen someone with business experience, someone who already knew this world." Eleanor set down her reading glasses and studied Maya thoughtfully. "You know what I've learned in 40 years of business? Technical skills can be taught. Character cannot. You already have something I spent decades trying to find in potential. Partners, the ability to make difficult decisions for the right reasons." Maya felt something shift inside her chest, a growing sense that maybe, just maybe, she could do this. Not because it was easy, but because someone believed she could. "What happens if I fail?" Maya asked. Eleanor smiled. "Then we'll figure out where things went wrong and try again. That's what partners do." For the first time since accepting the offer, Maya felt something other than terror. She felt possibility. Over the following months, Maya's world expanded in ways she had never imagined possible. What began as overwhelming business meetings gradually transformed into a natural rhythm of shared work and mutual discovery. Eleanor proved to be a patient but exacting teacher, and Maya discovered she had an intuitive understanding of people that translated beautifully into property management. Their days developed a comfortable routine. Mornings were spent reviewing financial reports and tenant concerns. Afternoons involved site visits to various properties, where Maya learned to assess everything from structural integrity to neighborhood dynamics. Evenings often found them in Eleanor's office, sharing takeout Chinese food while discussing complex lease negotiations or zoning challenges. It was during one of these quiet evening sessions that Maya first glimpsed the woman behind the business empire. "You never talk about your family," Maya said, looking up from a maintenance report she was reviewing. "Did you always want to be in real estate?" Eleanor set down her reading glasses and gazed out the window at the lights beginning to twinkle. "Across the town below, I wanted to be a teacher actually. Literature. I had dreams of inspiring young minds, discussing Shakespeare and Steinbeck in cozy classrooms." Maya waited, sensing there was more. "I married young 22 to a man who shared those dreams. Robert was going to be a principal, and I would teach. We planned to buy a little house with a white picket fence and fill it with children and books." Eleanor's voice grew soft with memory. "We had just bought our first property, a tiny cottage on Elm Street, when Robert was diagnosed with cancer. He was gone within 8 months. I'm so sorry," Maya whispered. "The medical bills took everything, including our cottage. I was 24, widowed and homeless. That's when I learned the most important lesson of my life. Property isn't just about buildings. It's about security, dignity, and having a place in the world that no one can take from you." Eleanor turned back to Maya, her eyes bright with unshed tears. "I bought my first rental property with Robert's life insurance money. Then another. And another. I told myself I was building security, but really, I was building a fortress against ever feeling that vulnerable again." Maya reached across the desk and gently covered Eleanor's hand with her own. It was the first time either of them had initiated physical contact, and Eleanor looked surprised by the gesture before smiling gratefully. "Is that why you never remarried?" Maya asked, partly. "But also because I got so focused on building the business that I forgot how to let people in. By the time I realized how lonely I was, I didn't know how to be anything other than Eleanor Whitmore, the property queen." She squeezed Maya's hand. "Until I met a young woman who saw an elderly stranger in need and didn't hesitate to help. From that evening forward, Their relationship shifted imperceptibly but profoundly. Eleanor began sharing stories from her early days in business, the sexist clients who refused to take her seriously, the banks that wouldn't give her loans, the small victories that kept her going. Maya, in turn, opened up about her own dreams deferred, her fear of never being enough, her guilt about leaving her design career behind. They discovered they both loved old movies and began staying late on Fridays to watch classics on Eleanor's office projector. Maya learned that Eleanor made terrible coffee but could remember every detail of every property deal she'd ever made. Eleanor discovered that Maya had an artist's eye for space and design that transformed their approach to renovations. The moment that changed everything came on a rainy Thursday in November. Maya was reviewing insurance claims when she noticed an irregularity in the paperwork for Sunset Manor, a senior living facility Eleanor had purchased a previous year. The numbers were off by nearly $50,000, money that was being quietly funneled elsewhere. Maya spent hours tracing the discrepancy before realizing the awful truth. Frank Morrison, Eleanor's longtime financial manager and one of the few people she trusted completely, had been embezzling funds from the accounts of elderly residents. Maya's hands shook as she printed the evidence. Frank wasn't just stealing money, he was stealing from the most vulnerable residents, people who trusted Whitmore Properties to protect their life savings. She found Eleanor in the parking lot of Sunset Manor, where she had been meeting with residents about upcoming improvements. Eleanor took one look at Maya's pale face and immediately led her to a private office. "Tell me," Eleanor said simply. Maya laid out the evidence methodically, watching Eleanor's expression shift from confusion to horror to a cold, controlled fury that Maya had never seen before. "How long?" Eleanor asked quietly. "At least 18 months. Maybe longer. Eleanor, some of these residents, they're already struggling financially. This could destroy them." Eleanor closed her eyes and took a deep breath. When she opened them, Maya saw not just anger but deep, personal pain. "Frank helped me buy my first 3 properties. He's been with me for 25 years. He was at Robert's funeral." Eleanor's voice cracked slightly. "I trusted him with everything." Without thinking, Maya stood and wrapped her arms around Eleanor in a fierce hug. For a moment, Eleanor stood rigid with surprise, then melted into the embrace, allowing herself to be comforted by someone who understood that betrayal cuts deepest when it comes from those we love. "We'll fix this," Maya whispered. "We'll make it right for every single resident, I promise." Eleanor pulled back, tears streaming down her cheeks, and looked at Maya with something that went far beyond gratitude or professional respect. "You know what the most remarkable thing is," Eleanor said softly. "For 25 years, Frank saw me as someone to take advantage of. But you see me as someone worth protecting." In that moment, Maya realized their relationship had evolved into something neither of them had expected, a deep, genuine friendship built on mutual respect, shared values, and the rare gift of truly seeing each other. The scandal broke on a Tuesday morning, splashed across the front page of the Millbrook Gazette with a headline that made Maya's blood run cold. "Trusted financial manager embezzles from elderly Whitmore Properties under investigation." Within hours, the story had spread to regional newspapers and local television stations. Frank Morrison's arrest dominated the news cycle, but the narrative quickly shifted to focus on Eleanor and Maya's unusual partnership. Questions arose about Maya's rapid rise from waitress to heir apparent, with speculation ranging from gold digging to elder abuse. Maya arrived at the office to find a crowd of reporters and protesters outside the building. Signs read, "Justice for Seniors" and "Investigate Whitmore Properties." Camera crews thrust microphones at her face as she pushed through the chaos. "Ms. Chen, is it true you manipulated an elderly woman to gain control of her fortune? How do you respond to allegations that you're taking advantage of Mrs. Whitmore's loneliness?" Maya found Eleanor in her office, standing at the window watching the commotion below with steely composure. She had aged visibly in the past week, the stress of Frank's betrayal and the media circus taking its toll. "Eleanor, I think I should step back," Maya said quietly. "This is hurting you, hurting the business. Maybe if I distance myself." "Absolutely not." Eleanor's voice was firm as she turned to face Maya. "We handle this together, or we don't handle it at all. But the newspapers are calling me a con artist. They're saying I manipulated you. Let them say what they want. I know who you are, Maya. More importantly, you know who you are." Eleanor moved closer, her eyes fierce with determination. "For 30 years, I've faced criticism from people who couldn't imagine a woman succeeding in business. I survived that. We'll survive this too." The legal battle was intense but swift. Maya and Eleanor worked closely with investigators, providing complete transparency about their financial arrangements and the timeline of their relationship. The evidence Maya had discovered proved crucial. In prosecuting Frank, who eventually pleaded guilty to embezzling over $200,000 from elderly residents. During the trial, Eleanor took the stand to publicly defend Maya's character. "This young woman discovered the theft that my longtime trusted employee had been concealing. She protected our residents' interests without any thought for her own reputation. If that's manipulation, then I hope more people learn to manipulate like Maya Chen." The vindication felt hollow, however, when Eleanor collapsed outside the courthouse steps after giving her testimony. The stress, combined with a previously undiagnosed heart condition, landed her in the hospital for 3 weeks. Maya never left her side. She conducted business from Eleanor's hospital room, fielding calls from contractors and tenants, making decisions about maintenance and repairs. She discovered that managing the empire wasn't just about numbers and contracts. It was about people trusting you to protect their homes and their futures. "You're ready," Eleanor said one evening as Maya reviewed lease agreements in the chair beside her hospital bed. "You've been ready for months, but I was too selfish to admit it." "Don't say that," Maya whispered. "You're not going anywhere." Eleanor smiled sadly. "I'm 77 years old, Maya. I've had a full life, and thanks to you, I've remembered what it feels like to have family again." 3 months later, Eleanor passed peacefully in her sleep. Maya found her final letter on the kitchen table of Eleanor's house, written in her careful handwriting. "My dearest Maya, if you're reading this, then I've gone to join Robert, and you're probably wondering what happens next. The answer is simple. You continue. You've already proven that you can run this business with both competence and compassion. But more than that, you've shown me that wealth means nothing if you don't have someone to share it with. I'm leaving you everything not because you asked for it, but because you never did. You saw a lonely old woman and chose to help. You discovered fraud and chose to protect the vulnerable. You faced public scrutiny and chose to stand by your principles. Use this gift wisely. Build homes for people who need them. Create opportunities for those who remind you of yourself. And remember that the greatest legacy isn't what you accumulate, it's what you multiply in others. Thank you for giving me 6 months of anonymous kindness, 80 months of genuine friendship, and a reason to believe in the goodness of people. Again, with all my love and confidence in your future." Eleanor. 1 year later, Maya stood before the ribbon-cutting ceremony of the Eleanor Whitmore Community Center. Built on the site of the old Rosie's Diner, the center provided job training, financial literacy classes, and small business loans for people transitioning out of service industry jobs. "Eleanor taught me that wealth isn't about the buildings you own," Maya said to the gathered crowd. "It's about the lives you touch and the opportunities you create for others to build their own dreams." In the audience, Maya's mother sat in the front row, healthy and proud. Beside her were former residents of Sunset Manor, whose stolen money had been fully restored through the legal settlement. In the back stood several young women who had been hired as the first participants in the Whitmore Properties apprenticeship program: waitresses, cleaners, and retail workers who were learning the business just as Maya had. That evening, Maya returned to Eleanor's house, which she had inherited but could never quite think of as her own. In the garden, she had planted a small memorial rose bush with a simple bronze plaque. Eleanor Whitmore, she believed in the power of seeing people. Maya sat on the garden bench, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of gold and pink. She thought about the elderly woman who had once sat in booth 7, ordering coffee and toast while secretly searching for someone worthy of her trust. She thought about the impossible offer that had changed her life, and the friendship that had taught her the difference between being wealthy and being rich. Tomorrow, she would wake up and continue building Eleanor's legacy. But tonight, she simply sat in the garden of the woman who had seen her potential when she couldn't see it herself, grateful for the gift of being known, trusted, and loved. Some gifts change your life, others change who you are. Eleanor Whitmore had given Maya both, and now Maya was committed to passing that same gift forward, one person at a time. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.